My name is Lisa Jarrett. I am the co-director of the Art and Social Practice MFA program here at Portland State University. I direct this program with Harold Fletcher, who couldn't be with us today, but I think you will see his work evidenced in our students' work. This is day 2 of assembly, and this morning, or actually all day, we will be featuring the graduate talks of our graduating class. We'll begin this morning with Laura Glazer. Laura Glazer, then we'll continue with Diana Marcela Cortes. Karin Osnes will follow that. Becca Kaufman, and we'll close out with Kiara Walls. There will be refreshments provided throughout the day, and they're in the gallery, the MK gallery just out. And the bathrooms are kind of, just wind your way around the halls to the left till you see signs. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me and let me know. Lucy entered the waiting room. I'll be with her in just a minute. A very, very warm welcome to all of you who have decided to join us this morning for our student presentations. This represents the culmination of 3 years of dedicated research and practice within the field of social practice and really understanding how to leverage a socially engaged approach to creating and making art. We are incredibly proud of these students for their work. I hope that you enjoy the depth and breadth of their conversations and the work that they get to share with you today. And we hope that you will join us tomorrow for the 3rd and final day of assembly, and that'll be at the King Farmers Market in Northeast Portland. Without further ado, a warm welcome to Laura Glazer.
How's this sound? Good? Okay. Okay. Go. Okay, let's go. Good morning. I'm Laura Glazer, and since 2001, I've been doing art projects, but somehow couldn't seem to call myself an artist. I wasn't identifying what I did as art. I felt like because I didn't have a studio practice and I didn't have anything deep, dark in my soul that I needed to make a painting about, that I couldn't be an artist. But I did know that I liked working in response to what already existed, people, places. I liked it when people took me with them into their world and showed me what they do and what they thought and what they know. One of the first artists I saw taking other people with her and going with other people was photographer Wendy Ewald. Especially her project Portraits and Dreams, where she was teaching kids in Appalachia how to use photography as a tool for observing their lives at home and school and sharing what they wanted other people to know about their lives. They were working with what was, just 1 second.
Trying to get that click up.
I know.
Still working? It's still happening?
It is still
I
happening.
apologize, everybody. Let's see what happens if I click.
Ooh, yeah. How's that? Oh, it's still kind of cracking. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Level's weird.
Do, 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 do.
While we're working on this. Thanks. Thanks. That's it. Done.
Congratulations, Laura.
Thanks. I could try to project.
That would be fine too if that's going to continue. Or you can hold them up.
I could hold it. I think it's still clicking now.
Okay. We'll work on the levels during lunch.
Do you want to turn me off?
I'm going to turn you off.
Unengage?
Disengage.
Thank you. I will try my best, but if you need to come down in front, that's okay too, in the middle of the talk. just gonna take it from the top here, just to like roll it back. I was particularly smitten with her project, Portraits and Dreams, which is about teaching kids in Appalachia how to use photography as a tool for observing their lives and sharing what they wanted other people to know about their lives, and even showing it to themselves. I liked that in her methodology, she was working with what existed there. In a similar way to filmmaker Agnes Varda. She was a film director, photographer, and artist. She made movies about the little things, the minutiae of daily life, and the things that mattered to her, such as her neighborhood in Paris and the shopkeepers that lived on her street, Rue Daguerre. She made a life's work out of sharing what was around her that mattered to her. And those things mattered to me. Which is why I was so overjoyed when I saw this sign on the side of the road in Northeast Portland declaring Agnes Varda forever. And then I was thrilled to find out that someone else in Portland had liked Agnes as much as I did. And they weren't afraid to declare it to anyone who was driving around. And it turns out the person who made this is my friend Jennifer Jones. Artist and Professor Harold Fletcher gave every MFA student in the program $100 to commission someone to do something. So I commissioned JJ to continue this admiration project. We collaborated on the design of the poster. This is her original idea. Also, I should point out, she's sitting right there, which is why I'm looking right there. And we evolved it into this poster. We kept it anonymous, and the tabs were a way for people to pull off what intrigued them, pop it in a pocket, and hopefully Google it later if they didn't know who Agnes Varda was. JJ hung up over 500 of these around Portland and beyond in hopes of inspiring people to watch Agnes's films and generally increase awareness of this mother of the French New Wave. I saw it as a way to experiment with artist multiples and dipping my toe into being a modern Fluxus artist. I also wanted to add to the Portland lineage of making public markings on the landscape, such as one of my most favorite projects called Orange Lining, which is a project by Peg Butler and Buster Simpson. They were commissioned by TriMet in 2013 to invite Portlanders to write short poems and submit them to TriMet. And then the artists selected them and they were impressed in the sidewalks throughout the Orange Line light rail route. Similar to the existing historical street names that are stamped in the sidewalks all over the city. We noticed people were using social media to wonder about who we were. Even Portland's largest independent theater was asking around. After we revealed our identities, we used the domain name agnesvardaforever.com to upload a PDF of the poster and invite anyone from around the world to download it, print it, and post it in their city, which happened in Laredo, Texas, and Bogota, Colombia. This project has legs that we could never have fathomed and now includes 2 film festivals and a very special event where we were able to commission 3, actually closer to 5 musicians to write an original score to Agnes's first film and then perform it in front of a live audience during a screening of that film. Growing up outside of DC, I was dressed very well. And I was often taken to Smithsonian museums and the National Gallery of Art. I grew up thinking museums were a short car ride away and were free, which prepared me for my role as program manager and research assistant at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. School Museum of Contemporary Art. The co-directors of the MFA program are also the co-founders of this museum, Lisa Jarrett and Harold Fletcher. It's a museum and art project embedded within a fully functioning elementary school. Just like a library is standard in many schools, the presence of KS MoCA brings a museum and art into the daily lives of school children, making art and museums and careers in art part of the experience of going to school and growing up, in the hopes that students who are engaging with art in the museum might consider pursuing a career in art. They don't just have to be a studio artist even. The hope is going to the museum becomes as commonplace as going to the library. And we attend college classes there too. One day last year, I noticed that all of the doors of the school were exhibiting artwork about Black history in honor of Black History Month. The artwork was by teachers, students, and staff. I photographed each door and compiled them into a book called I Want Everyone to Know: The Black History Month Doors at Dr. MLK Jr. Elementary School. Every person who contributed to the artwork on the door was credited along with the photograph of the door that they worked on. A copy of the book is in every classroom of the school. But this one about Ruby Bridges, this is the one that started it all. It's really one of my favorites. It was created by first grade teacher, Ms. Melody Adams, who taught herself how to paint and draw during the pandemic quarantine. She used her passion for teaching Black history to get the entire school to participate in this project. I interviewed her for the Social Forms of Art Journal, and we spent hours talking about her life and how she came to the school and this project. We also spent hours editing the transcript of her words together. The interview is included in the book, along with interviews from other participants in the project, such as a first grade student in Miss Adams's class, the principal, and a couple other people that I'm blanking on right now, but a lot of people. We continued the conversation in public at last year's assembly, during which I asked her questions about what she wants everyone to know. And she shared it with her colleagues, her great aunt, and her son. As I said, there's a copy of the book in every classroom, and it's also for sale at a local bookstore called High Books, and it's on Amazon, and it's downloadable from the KS MoCA website as a free PDF. Not only did I grow up visiting museums, but I also went to libraries with my mom all the time. I was partial to the one that had a hamster, but we didn't go to that one a lot, but I always hoped we were on our way there. Libraries were not just a place to read a book, but they were where I could look at pictures on the covers of books and inside books, and I could take them home with me. I could have this sense that the art and the words belonged to me, even briefly. I was introduced to things that I didn't know existed and developed new curiosities around those things. So imagine my delight when I found out the New York Public Library has something called a picture collection, pictured here. It's located inside the main branch of the library, the Stephen A. Schwartzman building. And it's a place where researchers can do visual research. You can not only look at clippings from books and magazines that are organized by subject, but you can handle those clippings and spread them out on a table. You can rearrange them in a way that you can't do with an analog search on Google. This allows researchers to make connections between images and ideas in the physical space of the library. You can even check these out using your library card, just like Andy Warhol and Diego Rivera did many years ago. My relationship with the picture collection began in 2019 when I was their online artist in residence. I curated images from their digital collections and shared them on their Instagram account for 1 month. But I longed to experience researching there in person. I really wanted to be around people as they looked at pictures, as they browsed. I wanted to overhear their conversations and maybe even participate in those conversations, which I had the opportunity to do as an artist fellow of the picture collection in 2022. This is my handmade business card that I gave to potential participants so they wouldn't think I was just crazy or creepy. I think it worked. I'm not sure. So it would be natural to think that I started this project just asking people what they were looking at. But I was more interested in what else happens in the life of a researcher using the picture collection. I wanted to let looking at an image in the public space of the library spark a conversation and see if it led to some sort of connection. So I named the project See Also, which is a library term for a cross-reference. It's inspired by this 1986 documentary called Sherman's March by Ross McElwee. He got a big grant to make this film about General Sherman's Civil War march to the sea. And as he's making the film, he ends up making a movie about his own life and search for love as he travels throughout the American South. I set out the intention of being in the space of the library and seeing what happened. I used the hanging out method in the collection. I was alert to the people looking at pictures and listening to questions that they asked the librarians, which is how I met Gregory. He's a painter and writer who grew up in Harlem and now lives in South Carolina and travels to the picture collection at least once a month. He was looking for pictures of aging hands for a painting. His See Also is that he paints and writes pictures about the Black Confederate experience during the Civil War. He sells his artwork to collectors at reenactments in the South. I met Yolanda, who was looking at pictures of bodies in water as references for her paintings. So I thought I was going to ask her a really casual question. I said, were you a swimmer? Are you a swimmer? And she surprised herself as she answered, yes, I was a member of an elite swimming team, the US Masters swim team, and I swam a big race through the Adriatic Sea off the coast of Croatia. A few days later, I went to her apartment and she showed me these beautiful photo albums documenting that swim race. This is Sally. She needed directions to the bathroom, so I offered to show her. And during the walk to the bathroom, I found out she's a costume designer. And she was doing research in the picture collection on Mary McLeod Bethune so she could design costumes for a play about her. Sally's also a flamenco dancer and designs flamenco dresses, both of which she showed me in her studio a couple days later. Chantal is one of the librarians at the New York Public Library. She shared with me that there are 7 subject headings of folders that when she looks at them, she experiences a feeling of calmness. One of those folders is moon. We talked about the difficulties of moon watching in the city. Later that night, both of us noticed the full moon and sent pictures to each other at nearly the same moment. On my first day of my residency at the library last summer, I walked past this gentleman doing free art right outside the entrance to the library. His name is Sungjin Lee, and he has a studio at his apartment at home in Queens. And when he recognizes that he's starting to feel lonely, he leaves the apartment and sets up to do free art outside the library. He's been doing this in this location for 4 months when I met him. And sadly, he had never heard of the picture collection. A few days later, I took him and showed him the picture collection, where he made free art and checked out pictures with his new library card. Then he took me outside and he made free art using the pictures he had just checked out and made them available to people walking by. A few days later, he returned to the picture collection and made his free art inside the library and presented it to the other fellows and librarians. After the project, I came back to Portland and organized all of the information and photographs about the project, and I made a book about it. This past March, I returned to New York and I gave a short presentation about the project at the library. It was part of an event co-sponsored by the library and 10 by 10 photo books. It was for me and one of the other fellows. After the presentation, project participants who were in the audience stood up and shared what their current See Also was. Gregory spoke about his newly published memoir. Later, attendees could look at materials that Christian and I had used in our projects. I designed posters featuring every participant and installed them in the main area of the picture collection. They were advertising the book and spotlighting the people who participated in the project and their interests. Each poster is assigned a subject heading. Related to the participants' See Also, and will be added to the picture collection's oversized poster collection after the exhibit, so that future researchers might encounter these people and their interests for their research. So for Sungjin, his subject heading is artists, and for Yolanda, her subject heading is albums and scrapbooks. The participants in this project shaped it by sharing what they know with me, and we built a relationship with each other, and I consider them to be friends. It's documented in a book that I designed and published called See Also, Making Friends at the New York City, or the New York Public Library Picture Collection. The book is sold in the library gift shop and included in shelves at the picture collection, with other books produced using the picture collection. My hope is that other researchers will encounter my book and realize that there are other ways to do research other than reading a book, looking at pictures. You could also talk to another person and see where they take you. The books I publish document projects I do, often with other people. I make books to go in libraries, bookstores, classrooms, galleries, and museums. I've published books that are reprints of a classic 1798 poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, illustrated with photos by my boyfriend's cousin, who is a mariner. A zine co-authored by Reed, who is a 4th grade student at Dr. MLK Jr. School. This one's called Ambush in the Thousand Chair Forest. A book documenting a group walk to a photo booth in Florence, Italy. Books are a place for people to see themselves. They're a place to be together and take a reader somewhere. A reader like Wendy Ewald, pictured here with my book about the New York Public Library. She was the visiting artist at KS MoCA this past school year, and I worked closely with her on 3 projects that took me to places I couldn't get to by myself. Like when I tried to do my own version of Portraits and Dreams in 2004 at a spring break arts camp that I ran at a performing arts center. We weren't photographing portraits and dreams, but we were trying to explore appearing and disappearing. In the Wendy Ewald projects I worked on at KS MoCA, I had the opportunity to insert myself into her process, letting her take me and the elementary school kids with her into her projects. I was finding my own way to inhabit her ideas, but as myself. I coordinated a mentoring program between PSU students and elementary school students. This is my classmate, Marissa Perez, on the right with her mentee, Evan. When Wendy was on site about a month ago, I went with her as she worked with the mentors and mentees. In one of the other projects, I got to show kids how printers work and collaborate with them on posters for them to use in their classrooms. One of the highlights was observing how she talks about collaboration with these 2 young photographers who are starting to work together, Mo and Marcellus. She asks the best questions. And after we had this meeting together, I expressed to her how impressed I was with the quality of their inquiry. And without missing a beat, she said to me, they are so in touch with their interior lives. And that is probably the greatest insight I got from being around Wendy, is that within her practice and projects, she is helping other people bring out what goes on inside. I even got to create exhibits of her work in collaboration with the other team members at the museum. You may have seen them yesterday at assembly. And yes, it looks like a museum or gallery exhibit, but our work goes a little bit deeper than that. And working on this project allowed me to think about, how do we credit Wendy and how do we credit her collaborators and participants? Also thinking about what needs to be shared in the context of a museum within a school that encourages the community to access her work and art in general. Another incredible project that just launched yesterday was in collaboration with the school librarian, Ms. Beth Schlegel. She was inspired by Wendy's 2002 book, The Best Part of Me, and she read this book to every student in the school. That's 322 kids. Then she took a picture of each kid with a little help from me, Olivia, Marissa, Luz, and Harold. And when she was taking a picture, she asked, "What's your best part?" And often the kid would smile or say, "Photograph my eyes or my hands or my feet while I do a handstand." And then she helped them write down their best part and the reason why it's their best part. We are both fans of the Tito's. My mom loves when I smile. I'm sure, Mom, you can understand that one. And yesterday we unveiled a full wall of these 322 spreads that collect the best part of every student in the school and why they chose that part. Our best parts can help us find things in common and bring us together as collaborators. For Beth and I, we both share the same best part, which is our curly hair. Sometimes the best parts of us connect us to complete strangers. Thanks for letting me take you with me today. Thank you. There's still some time before the next talk. Can I invite some questions? Any sort of question. JJ.
Will your experience at KS cause you to do more projects in the future with children?
I hope so. Oh, let me say the question. JJ just asked me if my projects and work at KS Mocha will cause me to do more work with children in the future. And I was just saying to John the other night that I was really surprised at how much I liked working with kids. I don't mean to imply that I ever thought I didn't like working with kids, but there are so many magic moments that happen just by being in that place where I knew certain concepts in my head that we had been learning in the MFA program, but they didn't click until I was in the school doing the project. And I think it is being in that place and doing the thing with a person who's so in touch with their interior life that they made that click happen. I can only hope that my presence makes a click happen for them. And I know that the impact it's had on me, and it's really just been in the past year because I was a little involved with KS Mocha during my second year. I was there a lot this year, like probably I was working with them over 10 hours a week. And magic is the wrong word. I want to use a more academic term, I think, but it allowed me to participate in making something and being a part of that community. It just feels like a real gift to have access to that. Luz.
What book do you want to make next?
What book do I want to make next? Well, Luz just asked what book I want to make next. There is a zine kind of hanging out from the New York Public Library project. The first time I visited the library, I was really kind of like a little sarcastic. And as I was leaving, I just went up to the librarian and gave him my business card. And I was like, let me know if you ever want someone to do an Instagram takeover. And then a couple months later, I was contacted to do the takeover. And that librarian's name is Jay. When I was at the library last summer doing my research, Jay and I became friends, and we collaborated on an exhibit in the picture collection about souvenirs. We went through a bunch of folders and picked out clippings related to this like broad approach to how do you remember an experience. We picked about 12 pictures, and I left and came back to Portland. He put the pictures up on this large bulletin board, and then he hand wrote captions for each picture that were snippets of our conversation about the pictures that he remembered. He has beautiful handwriting. I have scans of all of those captions, and I'd like to make a book that has, or a zine that has each of the images and the captions. The next book I think that gets made is I just went to Coffee Creek, which is the women's prison about 20 minutes south of here. And I met an incarcerated artist there who is doing incredible site-specific sculpture, paintings, and just interdisciplinary artwork. She's going to be released in January. And so I'm going to help document what she has created. And I imagine that while we're making a portfolio for her when she comes to PSU, that it might also become a project that's documented in a book. Lisa.
Hi, Laura. This is from Zoom.
Hmm.
Ruth is asking, how did Laura figure out it was JJ who did the original and that?
I have two friends, both of whom are here, Polly and JJ, who I emailed immediately after I saw that sign. I was like, you're not going to believe what I found. This is just so crazy that someone else in Portland has to broadcast that they love Agnes Varda. And I woke up the next morning to an email from JJ. I was like, I can't believe this happened. I did that. And she had hoped that she could make a painting downtown near where I live so that I could discover it in my own neighborhood. I was visiting a classmate, and I had never really spent time in JJ's neighborhood. I didn't even know she lived there. It seemed completely random. Are there other questions? Mo.
Yeah. But what's something you learned about culture as a tool for doing a project?
Mo's, yeah. Let me see if I can do it. What is the thing I learned in all the books that I've made? What is the thing I've learned about making books?
Yeah,
What's something I didn't know before? I had a hunch that books always took longer than anyone wanted them to take. And now I am absolutely effing certain that they take 3 times as long as anyone thinks they're gonna take. Because a couple of reasons. One, books involve lots of people. They may be about one subject, but much like making a film, there are lots of behind the scenes roles to making this. There's an editor, there's a designer, there's a production person, there's a writer, a photographer, and we often don't factor in how much time it takes to develop and maintain those relationships that can produce something that is going to matter to an audience that most people will never encounter. The book goes out into the world and into the public, and you don't get to say, oh, I meant to change page 97. You have to develop trust in the relationships so that you don't have to have caveats everywhere. So the book is actually a conglomeration of relationships and trust. I think that also points to the difference between a book and a zine. I know that zines can be really comprehensive, but they are also much easier to produce by yourself and maybe with a smaller group of people. A book is for a lot of people, and it takes a lot of people to make the book. I probably have more to say about that, but that was a great question. Thanks. Karen.
I'm curious if you could introduce any two or more of your collaborators who don't know each other who put projects who would be want to meet each other and what you're doing.
Well, actually, JJ and Beth are sitting like diagonal from each. Karen just asked me if I had any two collaborators from projects that I'd want to introduce to each other. And I've been thinking about this all morning because Beth and I just finished this project at KS Mocha yesterday, and JJ's here. And we've been doing Agnes Varda forever for almost 3 years or 2.5 years. So they are going to meet. And, this person that I met at the prison the other day, as she was talking, I just thought so much about JJ because I think about JJ's art practice and how she decided to leave art school and be a male artist. She didn't need that crap at school. And she's just one of my most favorite artists. And here I was meeting Patricia, who was also, or Paige, who was also an amazing artist and was teaching it to herself. So I guess that's 3 people, but I feel like that's okay. Sarah. All right, that was a great question. If I could work on a project with Agnes Varda, what would it be? I'd probably want to make a movie. When JJ and I did the first film festival at the Clinton Street Theater, we were kind of smug. And when they were so generous in offering us this film festival and collaboration, so we just took it a step further and invited ourselves to be artists in residence of the theater. And my dream was for us to do our own version of my favorite Agnes Varda film, which is Daguerreotypes. She had just given birth to her son, and so she was taking care of him at the house, but she was also making a documentary about the shopkeepers and life on the street she lived on. But she could only go as far as the extension cord for her movie camera. The Clinton Street Theater is in a really small, tight-knit neighborhood that has an active public space. And I thought if we had enough time, we could do our own version of daguerreotypes. I now look at places around Portland or other places that I go thinking, if I were going to make a film, how could I get to know this place in the same way that Agnes knew her place? So that would be my first thing, which is a little bit bigger than I usually like to think about a project, but it's often on my mind. Morgan. Morgan asked if I'm looking back on where I started in the program, are there decisions or things that had surprised me that I wouldn't have expected? Is that right? Okay. In my practice. Clearly, I'm thinking about how to answer this. It's a really relevant question, not just because I'm graduating, but because in class on Tuesday, we were talking about the first year students getting to do their first assembly. And I think, it's a bit of a stressful time right now. And assembly is, for a lot of us, a really conceptual version of like what studio artists have when they do an end of year exhibit. So we're trying to figure out what projects to do, how to do them, are they gonna work? And I think someone just really casually said, oh, it doesn't matter, I'll just, whatever. And I had this knee-jerk reaction because I was like, and I said, actually, it really does matter. When you're in the moment in the beginning of the MFA program, all the decisions are related to just who you are and kind of stripping away what you think you are and coming down to understanding that in this social practice program, it's more what have you come to the table with, and finding a way to accept that that is enough to start anything. So doing an assembly project is like this first step to making that public. So even if it's just a flyer, it is enough of a thing that allows me to look back and be like, oh, that was a shred of what became something in my next year. For me, I thought I would be making work about writing letters and mail art and correspondence. And that really shifted and morphed into what I just presented about here today. Maybe it is correspondence, but it's a broader definition of correspondence. I think maybe there's time for one more question. Make it a good one. Get me. I don't mean get me. I mean, I don't know I did that. Olivia.
Okay, you mentioned the library.
Oh, yeah.
And do you remember any books from that time period of your life that stood out for you that you participated in this?
Olivia asked about the hamster at the library, and if there are any books from that time period that I still remember and have inspired me. We had a really small library in our town, Centerville, Virginia, and it was cute and cozy. They had this brand new mass market paperback version of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. And so it was like even smaller than this book, And it was this dark green color and it had a painting on the cover. And I think I was too young to read it, but I would look at it every time we went to the library. I liked how everything just was so pretty about it. And it's probably related to how I can also think about books as an object and a thing of value, a thing that makes me curious. So even though I didn't read Leaves of Grass then, and I still haven't read all of it, I remember how just being around that book made me feel. But Casey had a question too, and because you're related by work, I just feel like. Do I have time to respond to that? So I actually pitched the public library project to a grant funder about a year and a half ago. And it was more loosely formed. Part of it was involved me approaching strangers in the library, and they turned down my grant application because they had concerns about me as a white woman in a public space and my privilege about approaching people and maybe causing harm in that methodology. And that was really hard because it was my first time applying for that grant. I felt constrained by the application, not being able to explain how I actually connect with people. I think it's actually hard to put into words without sounding kind of woo-woo. And they picked up on that. And it really, I had to think about it for a long time. And I'm not sure I've completely resolved that, but I was definitely aware of it when I was in New York. It's a bit of less of a concern in the New York project because it's a more diverse place and it was a smaller place within that library. I had scaled down the project to fit in that space. But it's nice to hear your feedback about that because it's really on my mind. And I don't actually speak about the project in political terms. I'm still sorting out that language. So thank you. Lisa.
One last question. It says, if you were given $100 a grant for another project, what would you do with it?
What a great question. If I was given $100 for another project, what would I do with it? I would commission Beth to keep taking pictures. She photographed all of the kids in the school and has a family with an art background. And I think she captured what Wendy called an immediacy in those photos because she has a relationship with all of these students. And, you know, maybe with $100, she could take one more picture and maybe it would just be of her best part. I don't know. We would have to see what she would do, but I would do that. Thanks, LP. Thank you. Bye, everybody.